All right, hello friends. We'll give it a couple minutes waiting for people to come in before we get started. Hello, Cece. Hello. Hello, Venerable. And Elaine. No worries, Elaine. Stay up as long as you can. A millionaire. We'll get started in a bit. Hello, Audrey. Welcome. Hello, John. Hey, Dallas. All right, I think we'll get started now. The chanting I've chosen is a bit longer than normal, so I think we don't need to wait too long. People will probably join in as we're chanting. So we're going to do one of the bigger chants today, which is Ratana Sutta. There's the link to the Maggasekha chanting book, and the chanting starts on page 41. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Yani da buddhani samagatani bummani va yani va antalikke. Sabbeva bhuta sumana bhavantu atopi sakkaccha sunantu basitang. Tasmahi bhuta nisa metta sabbe mettang karota manusiya pajaya. Devacharato chaharantiye baling tasmahi ne rakkatta appamatta. Yankinchi vittang idhava hurangva sage suvayang ratanang panitang. Nano samangatti tathagatena idang pibuddhe ratanang panitang etena saccena suvatti hotu. Kayang viragang amattang panitang yadajjaka sakyamuni samahito natena dhammena samatti kinchi yadang pidamme ratanang panitang etena saccena suvatti hotu. Yang Buddha Setto Parivannai Suching Samading Anantarikanya Mahu Samadinna Tena Samona Vidyati Edang Vidamme Ratanang Panitang Etena Satchena Suvati Hotu Ye Puggala Atta Satang Pasatta Chattari Ettani Yugani Honti Te Dakkineya Sugatassa Savaka Ete Sudinnani Mahappalani Idang Pisange Ratanang Panitang Ektena Satchena Suvati Hotu Ye Supayutta Manasa Dalhena Nikkamino Gotama Sasanamhi Te Patipata Matang Vaggaya Ladha Muddha Nibbuting Bunjamana Idang Pisange Ratanang Panitang Etena Satchena Suvati Hotu Yatinda Kilo Pataving Sitosya Chatubhi Vattebhi Asampakampio Tatupamang Sappurisang Vadami Yo Arya Satchani Avecha Passati Idang Pisange Ratanang Panitang Etena Satchena Suvati Hotu Ye Arya Satchani Vibhavayanti Gambhira Panyena Sudesatani Kinchapite Honti Busappamata Nate Bhavang Attamang Adiyanti Idang Pisange Ratanang Panitang Etena Satchena Suvati Hotu Sahavassa Dassana Sampadaya Tayassu Dhamma Jahita Bhavanti Sakkaya Ditti Vichikichitancha Silabbattang Vapya Datti Kinchi Chatuhapaehi Chavippamuto Chabtabhitanani Abbavokatung Idang Pisange Ratanang Panitang Etena Satchena Suvati Hotu Kinchapi so kambang karoti papakang kayena vacha udacheta sava abhabbo so tassa patichadaya abhabbata ditta padassa bhuta Idang pisange ratanang panitang etena satchena suvati hotu Vanupagambe yata pussitagge gimhanamase patamasmin gimhe Tatupamang Dhammavarang Desai Nibbana Gamming Paramang Ittaya Idang Bibuddhe Ratanang Panitang Etena Satchena Suvati Hotu Varo Varanyu Varado Varaharo Anuttaro Dhammavarang Desai Idang Bibuddhe Ratanang Panitang Etena Satchena Suvati Hotu Kinang Puranang Navang Natti Sambhavang Viratta Chitta Ayatti Kevavasming Tekina Bija Virul Hichanda Nibbanti Dira Yata Yang Padipo Idang Pisange Ratanang Panitang Etena Satchena Suvati Hotu Yani da Buttani Samagatani Bummani Vayani Va Antalike Tathagatang Deva Manusa Pujatang Buddhang Namassama Suvati Hotu Yani da Buttani Samagatani Bummani Vayani Va Antalike Tathagatang Deva Manusa Pujatang Dhammang Namassama Suvati Hotu Yani da Buttani Samagatani Bummani Vayani Va Antalike Tathagatang Deva Manusa Pujitang Sangang Namassama Suvati Hotu Etena Satchavajena Dukkha Vupasumentu Amhe Etena Satchavajena Bhaya Vupasumentu Amhe Etena Satchavajena Roga Vupasumentu Amhe. All right. So now we will do the English. I'll just check the chat here before we go into the English. Hello, Ian. Welcome. And Robert. Let's do the English for Jules' discourse. Whatever beings are here assembled, whether terrestrial or celestial, may all these beings be happy and listen closely to my words. Pay attention, all you beings. Show kindness to the humans. Day and night they bring you offerings. Therefore guard them diligently. Whatever treasure is here or beyond, or precious jewels in the heavens, none is equal to the perfect one. And the Buddha is this precious jewel. May this truth may there be well-being. The calm Sakyan sage found cessation, dispassion, the deathless, the sublime. There is nothing equal to that state, and the Dhamma is this precious jewel. By this truth may there be well-being. That purity praised by the Supreme Buddha, called concentration with immediate result, that concentration has no equal, and the Dhamma is this precious jewel. By this truth may there be well-being. The 8 persons praised by the good, these 4 pairs are the gift-worthy disciples of the well-gone one. Gifts to them yield abundant fruits, and the Sangha is this precious jewel. By this truth may there be well-being. With mind well established, free from sense pleasures, firm in Gautama's teaching, on attaining their goal they plunge into the deathless, freely enjoying the perfect peace they've gained. And the Sangha is this precious jewel. By this truth may there be well-being. As a post firmly grounded in the earth cannot be shaken by the 4 winds, so is the superior person, I say, who definitely sees the noble truths. And the Sangha is this precious jewel. By this truth may there be well-being. Those who comprehend the noble truths, well taught by him of deep wisdom, even if they were slightly negligent, would not take an 8th existence. And the Sangha is this precious jewel. By this truth may there be well-being. For one who has attained to vision, 3 knowledges are at once abandoned: view of self, doubt, and clinging to needless rules and rituals. Freed from the 4 states of misery, they cannot do 6 kinds of evil deeds. And the Sangha is this precious jewel. By this truth may there be well-being. Though one may do some evil deed by body, speech, or mind, they cannot hide it. Such as it is impossible for one who has seen the path. And the Sangha is this precious jewel. By this truth may there be well-being. Like woodland groves in blossom in the first heat of summer, so is the most excellent Dhamma that he taught, leading to Nibbana, the highest good. And the Buddha is this precious jewel. By this truth may there be well-being. He, the best one, beyond compare, knower, giver, and bringer of the best, taught the most excellent Dhamma, and the Buddha is this precious jewel. By this truth may there be well-being. Their past is extinct with no new arising, their minds not drawn to future birth. Their old seeds destroyed, their desires no more growing. The wise go out just like this lamp. And the Sangha is this precious jewel. By this truth may there be well-being. Whatever beings are here assembled, whether terrestrial or celestial, gods and humans revere the perfect one. We bow to the Buddha. May there be well-being. Whatever beings are here assembled, whether terrestrial or celestial, gods and humans revere the perfect one. We bow to the Dhamma. May there be well-being. Whatever beings are here assembled, whether terrestrial or celestial, gods and humans revere the perfect one. We bow to the Sangha. May there be well-being. By the power of this truth may suffering cease for us. By the power of this truth may fear cease for us. By the power of this truth may illness cease for us. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right. Let's see. Who do we have with us? Anybody new? All right. Well, we give our metta to Abby right back, Elaine. Very good. So, friends, welcome to Dhammapalooza. I don't know if anybody is brand new here. I think Corsair said this was his first Dhammapalooza. So what we do at Dhammapalooza is we have a festival of Dhamma, 2 hours of Dhamma. And it's a variety of Dhamma, right? So we just did some chanting. Later on, we're going to do some guided meditation. And in between, it's up to you guys, right? This is a community event. This is not just about coming on to listen to me talk and yap on for 2 hours, right? This is an event for the Maggasekha, the Student of the Path community, to come together, right? People from all over the world come to these sometimes. We have Douse, who's in Eastern Europe. Sometimes we have our friend Gray from New Zealand come on. I don't see him yet today, right? So we have Dhamma practitioners from all over the world who come together to be together to listen and participate and to discuss Dhamma, right? So this is a community-led event, right? I have suttas for us to read, and I can, just choose topics at random and go and talk about them. but it's not that interesting if I do that, right? It's more interesting, and it's better that if you guys have questions, right? If you guys have topics you'd like me to discuss or the community to discuss, right? That is, to me, a better way of doing this, right? Because it really brings out what people are really trying to learn, right? It's nice every once in a while. So each time it's a little different, right? I think last week it was basically just a Q&A and discussion the whole time. The time before that, we did Sona Sutta, right? And 2 times before that, we did Kakachupama Sutta. So we do, a lot of different things. So right now, it's up to you guys to in the chat, if you have any topics, if you have any questions, now's the time to put them in. Actually, the whole Dhammapalooza, you can put topics and questions in the chat. Even when I'm talking, if you guys are chatting together in the chat, it's not interrupting me, right? I actually encourage you guys to talk to each other, to chat, say hello to each other, discuss things with each other in the chat. That's not bothering me one bit, right? It's because, again, this is a community event, right? And I always keep an eye out on the chat to see if anybody has questions or things that they'd like me to discuss, and we can go from there. So let's see. I'll give it a couple minutes. If anybody has any comments or questions or topics you'd like to discuss, and if nobody has anything, well, then I have a sutta for us to read. So just looking the chat here. A millionaire, are you calling Adriana the overlord? A millionaire and Adriana always have interesting back and forth in the chat. All right. Everybody's saying where they're from. Good. Oh, we had a little jump. Douse comes in with the first question. If we know there are rather questionable systems or philosophies, let's say Scientology or something like that, or even people who we know don't have the best intentions, should we warn others about them, not speaking too well of them, if we see someone considers giving them a try? That's a tough question. That's a really interesting question, Douse. What I would say is this. If they are somebody that's close to you, then I would say, yeah, you can, give your opinion, right? Give your concern for the person. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to listen to you, right? You see this all the time. If you grow up around people, you see this all the time, right? Somebody has a new boyfriend or girlfriend, and everybody around them is like, this person's not so good. You got to watch out for this. And they're like, no, this person's wonderful, because they have their goggly eyes and they're like, oh, this is such a wonderful person, right? And then like a year later, they go to their friends and they're like, yeah, you guys are right. Right? So people are not going to listen to you just because you say it, right? But still, it's a compassionate, nice thing to do, to if somebody you're close to, a friend or family member, to say, hey, listen, I have concerns about this, and this is why, and I'm just looking out for you. I'm not telling you what you should or you shouldn't do, but these are my concerns, right? And then it's up to the person to decide if that's really, to weigh your concerns versus their desire to go forth with whatever it is. People don't listen to warnings. People like to, when you're a kid and your parents say, don't put your hand on the stove. And they do it anyway because they have to experience it for themselves. Right? Like I've always prided myself in trying to learn from the mistakes of others. I've always had, been around elderly people and always wanted to learn their stories and their mistakes and their triumphs and all that kind of stuff. So I've always tried to learn from the mistakes of others and not make the same mistakes. But a lot of times I end up having to make the same mistakes because I had to experience it for myself. It's just the way it is. It's we are contradictory type beings, right? Our parent or somebody says, don't go left, and you go left. Right? So you have no control over the actions of others in that regard. But one thing though, you give your warning, a year later they say you were right. Don't gloat it. Don't be like, I told you so. Right? Don't do that. Right? Because you're trying to, especially if they're coming to you with an admission, you're trying to encourage that and be like, okay, no problem. We just look at, we're friends or family or whatever. We look out for each other. And that's it. Cece wants to do a whole Dhammapalooza about the 5 hindrances. I think we did that maybe about 6 Dhammapaloozas ago. Something like that. We did a deep dive into the 5 hindrances. I will keep that in the back burner though, because if it's always a good topic to discuss. Robert says, Bhante, could you speak a bit about the things that a practitioner might see in meditation? This morning I saw blue and white marble in the notch at the base of my throat during meditation. So some people are more inclined to kind of have these visions and various things. I've never had any of those. I've literally never had any of those kind of things, but some people are inclined to do so. Right. I remember when I first started on Second Life in the Buddhist Center, when I was still a layperson, and I was giving Dhamma talks, and people would kind of start asking me questions. That was the first time I started having people want to kind of ask me a question because I had a bunch of years of meditation behind me, etc. And I remember one person was like, I meditate and then I have astral visitors come to me and yada, yada. And I'm like, dang, all I do is follow my breath and it's boring. Right? So there are going to be all kinds of things that can occur while you're meditating. Right? And every single monastic I've ever listened to, I've ever read, who has asked this question or talks about this, right, says basically the same thing. It is simply phenomena arising. Don't get attached to it. Don't put too much meaning to it. Just allow it to arise and then allow it to go its own way, right? The mind is very deep. There's all kinds of stuff in the mind, right? All kinds of, you take, psychedelics and stuff and your mind goes all crazy. There's lots and lots of wild stuff in the mind, right? And meditation can bring that out sometimes. The important thing is to not get attached to it, just to investigate it and observe it for what it is. It's phenomena arising in the mind, in the body. And you say, oh, okay, this is interesting. And you go back, right? Like I can remember a couple of years ago during a very deep meditation that I had, I was practicing mindfulness of breathing, and I went pretty deep, almost as the most deep I've ever gone And I was really just totally calm and tranquil and just totally content to be with the breath. It was so wonderful, right? So peaceful. And all of a sudden, kind of like at the corner of my mind, there were just like plays, scenarios, TV shows occurring, people doing various things and various kinds of actions. And I'm just chill to follow my breath, just follow my breath. And all of that stuff, that movie reel or whatever it was that was playing, it was just there. I felt no desire, no just to go after. Oh, who's this? What are the characters? What are they doing? Or, no, I was just very happy and chill to be on the breath, and I just simply kind of, this is interesting, and I went back to the breath, and that was it, right? So the point is, when you practice mindfulness of breathing, all kinds of stuff is going to happen, right? Ajahn Chah talks about the still forest pool. Right. So the Ajahn Chah talks about like the mind being like this pool, right? And when it's nice and calm, all kinds of creatures will come to the pool. Right. And the minute you get excited, get agitated, they run away. If you've ever been in the woods, right? Most animals are afraid of humans. They give humans a wide berth. So as soon as an animal hears you, boom, and they're gone, right? So it's the same thing with stuff in the mind, right? If your mind's calm and tranquil, things will come and go, no problem. But if you pay too much attention, if you get attached to that thing, if you get propagate that thing, then your tranquility, your samadhi just goes away. So understand, observe it for what it is. It's just simply mental phenomena, and go back to the practice. Oh, Adriana, you fight back against that, a millionaire. I have a nice Sutta waiting for us. Bhante, are you familiar with the Dhammapada? If you ask a question about verse 3. Yeah, just I don't know like exactly what each verse is off the top of my head. Like you can say verse 3 and then it's that one. So I can look it up real quick. Verse 3. Or you can just type a summary of it real quick in the chat and I'll know it. Hello, Jessica. Welcome. Oh, chat jumped. We can go to, let's see, I can go to Dhammapada right here. I'm just on suttacentral.net real quick. Minor discourses. Dhammapada. The best translation, in my opinion, is Bhante Buddharakkhita's, not the modern Uganda Buddharakkhita, but this is an older. I think he was a Sri Lankan monk. He's passed now, but his translation is the best, in my opinion. And also, Bhante Sujato also has it as of the best 2 or 3 translations. So depends on what you mean by verse 3, right? There's verse 3 could be Hatred is never appeased by hatred. By non-hatred alone is hatred appeased. That's what that could be. Or it could be, it depends on the chapter. All right. All right, just checking the chat here. Robert says, never had supernatural beings drop by for a visit. Me neither. I actually am inclined to believe that I'm probably going to follow the Sariputta path. Sariputta was foremost in wisdom, right? He had no psychic powers, and he was and like that's pretty much. I think that's pretty much going to be me. I don't know if I'm going to have any psychic powers, and I tend to have to learn things the hard way, and my insight comes through like deep satipatthana practice. So, but I still try to practice I still try to practice samadhi. I still try to practice getting into jhanas, working with the hindrances and things like that, because it's what the Buddha advises, and it's very important. It's part of the Noble Eightfold Path. Right, so still, it's important to keep giving it a shot, even if you think it's not quite your, what your proclivity is. Oh, hello, Reed. Oh, geez, another jump. Now, I don't know, when it comes to the five hindrances, I don't know if Ajahn Sona and Bhante Sumano go over the, I think it's SN 4248, something like that. It's called Ahara, nutriment, right? It's in this sutta that the Buddha gives, gives advice for how we how we feed the hindrances and how we starve them. And also I made a mind map for the hindrances too. I can post a link for that for you guys. At least I think I did. Maybe I didn't. No, that's right. It was only, I thought, yeah, that's right. I remember because we did this about 4 or 5 weeks ago. Yeah, that's right. I don't have it as an official mind map. I have it as a from when I did, used to teach the five hindrances at the jhana retreats at Bhavana. But I can do that. I think I actually posted up in the Discord too. Here it is, 4651, nutriment. So that's going to be one of the most important suttas for understanding and working with the hindrances. Oh, Douse is coming in with a wall of text. Let's see here. All right. Elaine says it talks about a really cheap father who refused to pay for doctor services for his son. I don't think that's Dhammapada, unless I'm missing something. I mean, that might be a Dhammapada commentary story, and those I'm not really familiar with. So that could be. So Elaine is asking a question about karma. So it talks about a really cheap father who refused to pay for doctor services for his son. The son dies because 9F, the father's stinginess. Question, is the father going to experience bad karma because he failed to act in his son's best interest in a timely fashion? That's an interesting one. I think the Buddha is quite clear in the Sigalika Sutta and other places about the parent's duty to the child, right? And this kind of falls under like how we can't know the full workings of karma. So I couldn't say like, oh yeah, he's going to go to hell for that or whatever. I don't know. But I would say that it's since you have a being that you have brought into the world and that you have responsibilities towards, then obviously, yes, this would be an unskillful action, right? The Buddha says there are two kinds of fools. The first fool, well, I mean, there's lots of kinds of fools, but in this one sutta, there's two. The first fool is the fool who does not take up a responsibility that is theirs, right? So the father's foolish right then and there for not taking up the responsibility of caring for his son. The second fool is a fool that does take up a responsibility that is not theirs, right? So those are the two kinds of fools. So this father would be a foolish person for not taking up a responsibility that is his, that is the care and growth of the child. Corsair says, I've never approached anything what feels like jhana. It's not as easy as you think, right? So when it comes to jhana, there seems to be these kind of two camps. There's it's easy to get into jhana. And there's first you have to be secluded for 8 months, and then you have to practice for a couple of years, and then you get into jhana, right? So there's these like two extremes, right? I would say it's somewhere in the middle, and it depends on the person, right? The deepest, closest I've ever gotten to jhana was not as a monk, actually. It was as a layperson, and it was at my desk at work, interestingly enough, right? So I don't buy that you have to be like totally secluded in the woods for a long period of time to get into jhana. I think it is possible. It doesn't depend on physical seclusion. It depends on mental seclusion. First line of jhana, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, i.e. the 5 hindrances. So you are secluded from these things mentally. Doesn't matter where you are physically. Now, of course, for a beginner, yeah, it does. I mean, most people are not able to go to Times Square in New York City as brand new meditators and just sit down and meditate. Obviously, in the beginning, especially, having a quiet place is encouraged, right? But in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. External seclusion is not what is required for deep states of concentration. Internal seclusion is what is required. That's very important. So I would say it's somewhere in the middle. I would say it's definitely not easy. I do think that you can kind of stumble on it, like have beginners kind of. I mean, I wasn't quite a beginner when it I almost got into it. I had been meditating for a bunch of years by that point, maybe 6 years. But you can kind of stumble onto it. Like when I went to the jhana retreat with Bhante G, he talked about like anybody can kind of beginner's luck kind of stumble onto it, when the conditions are right, jhana, or what they call access concentration, or access concentration technically is not in the suttas, but Bhante G does kind of talk about what he calls jhanic quality meditation. So there's qualities of the jhana, but it's not all of the qualities that mean jhana, right? So you're kind of in the neighborhood, you're kind of close, but you're not there yet, right? So people can kind of stumble onto these things when the conditions are right, but then they don't know how to get back, right? So then you have to learn how to get there, which is working with the hindrances, understanding the hindrances, seeing how they arise, seeing how they cease, knowing how to starve them, knowing when you're feeding them, right? If you want to get into jhanas, your job is the hindrances. You sit down, you follow your breath, you watch the hindrances dance in front of you. The hindrances are coming up. First, it's ill will, then it's sensual desire, then it's doubt, right? Coming up and down, in and out, all around, right? As you're trying to follow your breath. They're there, right? They're there teaching you. They're showing you, hey, guess what? This is your mind. And we're distracting your mind. And we're distracting you. We're coming in. Right? We're teaching you, but we're also hindering you. That's important, right? To really know the hindrances. It's very important, right? And the Buddha says in a small sutta in the Anguttara Nikaya, it's literally just a paragraph, but the Buddha says the way to abandon the hindrances is satipatthana. If you are practicing satipatthana, if you are practicing sati and sampajanya in all of your activities, then it's going to be much easier to sit down and develop samadhi. Because the hindrances will have been slowly and minorly subdued throughout the whole day. Not just when you decide to sit down for a half hour and be like, okay, I'm going to, and then like you're fighting the hindrances. You meditate for a half hour and you start to get calm at, minute 28, right? Because you were fighting the hindrances the whole time. Right? That's one of the many important reasons to practice satipatthana all day, every day. Who's being paid for almost reaching jhana? What's going on? I got it. I've lost the track in the chat here. Ian Proctor. Ian, so many of us are that, right? So Ian says, I'm so guilty of being the second type of fool. Been getting better at that though. What's the second type of fool? One who takes on a responsibility that is not theirs. so many people do that, right? So many people actually want to take the weight of the world on their shoulders. It's not your responsibility, right? And not only is it you're not your responsibility, but the weight will crush you, right? Take it from somebody who was in a career that working with people and people in some of the hardest, aspects of their life and hardest times in their life. You can't, you need to know with wisdom what is your responsibility and what is not your responsibility. Right? The psychologist that I really like, that Elaine and I keep talking about, he says that he's never tried to tell the person what they're supposed to do. He helps them to figure out what they're supposed to do. That's so wise, right? No, like even people come to me as a monk to try. My job is not to tell people what to do, right? My job is to kind of help them to listen. Maybe put in some pointers here and there to kind of get them to understand their own path, their own way, right? But without wisdom, we take on responsibility that this is how this person, I'm going to tell you what you should do. Don't join that, don't join those Scientologists. Don't do this. Don't do this. This is how you should act. That's not a wise thing, right? But wisdom knows what's your responsibility and what's not your responsibility. I don't know who's being paid for almost reaching jhana. I'm trying to figure out where this came from. Because it's like such a silly thing. Man, if I got paid to try to reach jhana and that's all I had to do all day, that would be great. I would do that in a heartbeat. There's been a couple of times, Robert says, where I got to a point in meditation where it felt easier to stay seated and keep meditating than to get up. But that, I'm not sure that qualifies. No, when you're in jhana, you do, right? I mean, like, I've never been in jhana, right? Like I'm much more of a dry vipassana than a jhana practitioner, just my tendencies, even though I still try no matter what. But when I was at the doorstep, I knew, like, okay, this is like, it's something very, very different. Even Bhante G says it's if you have to kind of think, oh, was I in jhana? Was I not? You're not in jhana, right? A lot of people like, boy, the jhana retreats at Bhavana, oh my God, it brings out the wackiest people. I am in third jhana. I am in fourth jhana. I'm like, no, I think you have a mental illness. Right? There's wacky stuff related to jhana. People get really wrapped up in jhana. And yeah, even having, like, I've had a period of a week where I did this meditation session where I sat, I have pains after 20 minutes of sitting. Right. I've never been able to sit for like an hour with no problems. I know exactly when it's about a half hour because I know when certain pains arise and all kinds of things like that. But I had this period of time. It was at Bhavana. I was at Bhavana, and I was a monk at the time. I think I was a Samanera. And there was a 5 p.m. meditation and then a 6:30 chanting that led to the final meditation. And Monday, I started at 5, and then I just went deep and calm. And then somebody turned on the light. You know what that was? That was people coming in for the 6:30. So I had meditated for an hour and a half. not slept, bright and clear and fully aware for an hour and a half. And my body felt like I had not even sat at all. No pains, no aches, no sores, no nothing. And I said, what the hell was that? That was the coolest meditation, or one of the coolest meditations I've ever done. Right? How do you meditate, sit for an hour and a half and no problems? Normally I have to get, oh, God. Even, when I first started meditating, I was 373 pounds. And I thought all my problems were going to go away when I lost weight. And they didn't. I thought, it's going to be so much easier to sit when I lost weight. No, it wasn't. It never started being easier. But that one period is, whoa, what was this? This is amazing. And then you know what happened? Tuesday, same thing. Wednesday, same thing. Thursday, same thing. Friday, same thing. And I'm like, okay, the floor is going to drop out of this eventually. Because I've been meditating for many years by that point. You get various insights and various periods of time where things happen and you're like, whoa, this is amazing. But then they fade away, right? The causes and conditions for them to arise were there, but you have no idea how they were there. You have no clue. You're not able to see the dependent origination of these causes and conditions, but they were there. And sure enough, it lasted about 5 days. That whole week that happened, where I sat for an hour and a half and got out of it, got up like I had not sat at all. Right? That's so amazing. Wow. Right? That wasn't jhana. Right? So this was my point in telling this story. That's not jhana. You can go very deep. Right? It's not jhana. So it's very, if you kind of are questioning, is this jhana? It's not. Just at the very least, go on make the assumption of this is not jhana. It's really cool though. I wish I could have every meditation session like this, but this is not jhana. Oh, hello, Shab. Looks like Adriana's wish has come true. There's enough questions that we might not get to a sutta today. It's an interesting sutta too. We'll just have to, it'll stay there in my tabs until we need it. Corsair says, Bhante, have you ever experienced a meditation of feeling that each breath is the same breath? Each moment is the same moment. That time doesn't seem to matter much, or that each moment just cycles? No. No, I don't think I have. Each breath is the same breath. Maybe I just don't know what that quite means. But it doesn't ring a bell. Adriana's ready to join the Scientologists. All right. Or Reed is saying, I guess, when what a millionaire said about getting paid to do jhana is me hitting, getting close to jhana at work. It was before work. I always meditated for an hour at work before work. And I also would do small meditations during the day when I had a little break. I go for a walking meditation and stuff like that. But no, that particular event, that happened before work. Like maybe 8:47 and work was at 9. Elaine says, after the range retreat, where you'll be residing? So that's a good point. Okay, so I have 2 more Dhammapaloozas left, maybe 3. Although the Dhammapalooza will be like the day before I have to go to the airport, I think. So I think there's only 2 more Dhammapaloozas left. And I'm going to be staying with Aya Tataloka and the Bhikkhunis from Dhamma at their hermitage, the Aranya Bodhi Hermitage in California, Northern California. After that, I'm probably going to go visit some other Bhikkhunis, Aya Chittananda and Aya Santusika at Karuna Vihara. I think they also have a hermitage. And I'm going to try to do Abhayagiri. And then I'm going to go possibly to Southern California, possibly to LA, to maybe stay with some Indonesians there for a little bit and to see my old friend from Lay Life Rafe and possibly do a day visit to Wat Metta. Thanissaro, I already spoke to Thanissaro Bhikkhu, and he said that it's not going to be possible for me to kind of go to stay there because he's not going to be there all November, yada, yada, yada. But I'm going to maybe just try to go there for the day at least to see it. I don't know. And then hopefully on the way back, hit up Colorado. There's a few people I know in Colorado, but trying to see if people are going to be around and able to kind of host me. That's still up in the air. I don't know. So if nobody's going to be able to be around and maybe kind of host me for a couple of days and, give me a couple tours and let me start seeing Colorado, probably not going to be the best time, maybe later this year. But then after I come back from that, maybe it'll be end of November, December. I don't know after that. I might go spend, a month or two again with the Indonesian friends in New York City. It's all up in the air. That's nomad life. Nomad life is I have no idea where I'm going to be. It's all up in the air. Obviously I have people who are, I'm always welcome back at the farm. I know the Indonesian people in New York City are always, they always want me to come back and visit. And so it depends. We'll see. Maybe by that time I'll actually be able to do some traveling. Some travel, sharing Dhamma again, going to different places. This Saturday I'm doing a Zoom event for a group in Williamsburg, Virginia that I used to go to in person. I went there in person a couple times. And I actually did walking meditation on the grounds of the oldest college in the country. It was pretty neat. William and Mary, stuff like that. So, so hopefully I'm going to, get back into that as well and also do some traveling. Maybe do Australia next year. Possibly Sri Lanka. I've had a gentleman wants to take me to Sri Lanka in 2022 at least. So maybe not 2021, but so I guess that's kind of what's what. I don't see myself being in a permanent place until I move, until I maybe go to Colorado. Until then I'm probably next couple of years it's just going to be kind of nomad, going different places. So if anybody knows anybody or any groups or anything in Colorado that wouldn't mind, being a little bit of a tour guide for me, that would be great. I really do think my intuition is strong that Colorado is the place for me to be. So we'll see how that goes. All right. A millionaire saying, I tried to do lying meditation, but I'm way more restless in bed than during I'm sitting. Really, that's quite interesting because usually people fall asleep when they try lying meditation. So that's pretty interesting, right? Each person. This is one of the interesting things about being a monastic that shares Dhamma with people. I've heard the meditation experiences of hundreds of people, and it's like the diversity of experiences people have in meditation is quite interesting. But all of it is what? Not me, not mine, not myself, no matter what it is. Elaine wants to do the sutta. Oh, well, actually, it's time for guided meditation. I think the sutta is going to be a little bit too big. Yes, the longer discourse with Vacchagotta. So it would be too big to start that. Corsair says, Bante, it just means that you forget about time, and the passage of time stops feeling urgent. So the momentary differences between any particular pair of breaths are indistinct. I can understand about the forgetting about time. Like I said, that hour and a half session that I told you about, there was no time. Like it wasn't like it didn't feel like, man, I'm doing this already an hour. No, it was just on the breath, locked on the breath, like a fighter pilot, like lock on for the minute, like locked on, peaceful, wonderful. I don't need to go anywhere else. And then an hour and a half and boom, right? Adriana says, meditation at work before your shift starts. No excuses. Exactly. Well, thank you for the offer, Elaine. I might take you up on that because one of these days I do want to get up to Canada and go to some of the Thai forest monasteries up there. I've never been to Canada. I have met some Sri Lankans from Canada. There's Toronto. There's a big group of them. There's a bunch of Sri Lankan temples up there in Toronto. All right, everybody's heading out. You know what that means? That means it's time for doing our guided meditation. What is Satipatthana? Oh boy. All of a sudden, Adriana comes out with the question that can take another hour. And then Corsair says, what is Satipatthana? Douse, okay, Douse. Meditation time. It's time to head out then. Have a good rest of the night. Don't sleep too late into the day there. All right. It's like, for those of you who don't know, for Dallas, it's like 3 a.m. or something to that effect over in Eastern Europe. All right. I have a friend over in Vancouver Island, a lay supporter. One of these days, I hear that's very beautiful up there and nice and secluded and remote. All right. So let's go back to Adriana. Bante, so on the subject of Satipatthana all day, every day, how would you recommend we go about practicing it in a relaxed way? Like sometimes I feel I'm trying to be aware too many times at once. So you've heard me talk about 1 in 59, right? Starting out like, the last minute of every hour, bringing awareness to your body or to your breath, stuff like that. So you do these kind of very basic practices to develop the habit, right? What you need to do is to develop the habit. You need to train your mind in Satipatthana so that it becomes essentially muscle memory, mind muscle memory, right? So that you're not actually thinking about it. You're not trying, right? Because when you get to the point where you're not trying, then it doesn't take a lot of energy. It's just always there. Right? Like for me, at any time, I can just, even while I'm talking, I can kick in my mindfulness and I can feel 10 different parts of my body, right? I can observe what my tone of mind is right now, right? Stuff like that. And that's because I trained it for so many freaking years, 13 some odd years I've done, Satipatthana at least. So, so it takes time. It takes time to train it, to build it up, to make it a habit, to make it muscle memory. And then just like everything that you do that's muscle memory, right? At first, when you're training something, you're learning something, it takes a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of mental focus, right? But then it goes on autopilot, right? Now, of course, obviously, autopilot is the opposite of Satipatthana, right? We're trying to not be on autopilot in that regard. But still, it becomes second nature. So it's something that, what you should not be trying to do is be mindful of every single thing that's happening to you right now. That's impossible. Right? You could connect with 1,000 feelings, 1,000 phenomena that's occurring right now in and around your body, in your mind. Right? There's just too much. So you're not trying to encapsulate, you're not trying to be mindful of everything. Just pick one thing. Just be aware, whatever it is. Just pick one thing. Whatever arises. Pick one thing. Right? If you're in a conversation, be mindful of what you're listening to and what your mind wants to say. Right? If you're doing some kind of physical activity, be mindful of the state of your body. Right? Each Satipatthana is a toolbox, remember. It's not that you try to do everything all at once. Opportunities will arise, and then you take the tool out of the toolbox and you use it to investigate. It's very important. It takes time. Don't try to push it. Don't try to go too fast. Just slowly but surely, like the turtle that wins the race, slowly but surely practicing, developing, and then, then it becomes second nature. So, Corsair, Satipatthana is foundations of mindfulness. Or some people say establish of mindfulness. There's 4 of them. So in English, most people hear the 4 foundations or establishments of mindfulness. So these are 4 aspects of experience that you place your awareness on to develop your mindfulness, and also to see deeply, right? To observe, to see things as they are, yata bhuta. Buddha says that Satipatthana is the direct path for the purification of beings, for the overcoming of sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair, for the attainment of the true way, nibbana. Things like samadhi, jhanas, etc., already existed at the time of the Buddha. The Buddha practiced these things. But Satipatthana, mindfulness, that is the Buddha's gift to the world. That is the truly unique Buddhist practice. So the 4 aspects are body, feeling or sensation, mind, and principles. So you are placing your awareness in the body, right? Part of mindfulness of Satipatthana of the body is mindfulness of breathing, right? Being aware, having sampajanya, clear comprehension of what you're doing. All of these things, right? This is way too big. One of the things that I want to do after I come back is actually do maybe a 10 or 12 part series on Satipatthana. I've done retreats on Satipatthana. I've done multiple retreats where I taught Satipatthana, the whole retreat was just Satipatthana. But I've never done a recorded word for word, this is Satipatthana kind of a series. And so I'd like to, that's one of my things to do. Actually, probably for Insight Timer, because Insight Timer, that's one thing I think that I can do. I've been talking to Insight Timer. But in general, it's going to be one of those things where it's going to be available because it's such a wonderful thing, and it's deep. It's very, I think Bhante Sujato did one similar, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. It's 13 or 14 hours. Granted, he does kind of go on a lot of sidebars. He kind of goes off the topic a bunch of times. I remember 4 or 5 years ago, I watched it all. But there were interesting tidbits in it. There's a lot of going off the rails, but still there were some tidbits in it that were really interesting and really good. And, Bhante Analio wrote a book about Satipatthana, which is also good. Although I wouldn't, if you're brand new to it, it's probably not something to start with because it's pretty detailed. But yeah, so I think that's about all I'm going to do for now. Because again, Satipatthana is a very big, long topic, and not. All right. Well, maybe I'll even do it as kind of like a Zoom thing, right? So I'll have people can be there, and we'll do it like classes. But we'll see. I have lots of ideas of different interesting things to do online. But I've being in this kind of nomadic state is kind of hard to kind of focus on that, especially since I've been looking and planning towards this whole California thing. So I haven't been doing much the last couple of months in terms of that stuff. But let's do our guided meditation. And if we start now, that'll bring us to 45. and then we'll have 15 minutes to do some Samyutta Nikaya verses. All right, friends. Sit in a position that is comfortable and stable for you, whatever position you prefer for meditation. We'll do some scanning through the body, starting with our feet and slowly moving up to the top of our head. So bring your awareness to your feet. Try to connect with any sensation or feeling down there, such as the feeling of the feet pressing against the floor. The purpose of this exercise is twofold. It's to slowly bring your mind from the external to the internal. And it's to set up your body in a stable and comfortable posture so that you can meditate for longer periods of time without undue pain. So each time you move to a body part, you want to check to see that there's no small discomforts or imbalances. And if you do see that, then you can simply adjust your posture. Once you start your mindfulness of breathing, you want to minimize movement as much as possible. It is hard for the mind to become tranquil if the body is not tranquil. So it's good to spend some time beforehand in setting up the body. Bring your awareness through your ankles and your calves. To your knees. Whenever you're sitting on a cushion or cross-legged, it's important that your knees either rest on the ground or are supported by a little cushion. This helps with the balance of the posture, but also helps you do not harm your knees. Bring your awareness up through your thighs. to your pelvis and hips. The pelvis, hips, and buttocks is very integral to your posture. When sitting on a cushion, it's important to check to make sure your buttocks is evenly distributed on the sits bones, that your pelvis is angled in such a way that supports the neutral position of the spine, is not causing the upper body to lean or slouch. Think of the lower body as the foundation, like the foundation that a house rests upon. If the foundation is not stable, then the rest of the house on top of it cannot be stable. When you're done setting up your lower body in a comfortable and stable position, bring your awareness up through your abs and your chest. Check the position of the spine, that your upper body is not leaning or slouching. Bring your awareness to your shoulders. Check to make sure they're hanging loosely, not scrunched up and tight. Bring your awareness down through your elbows and hands. Check to make sure that the elbows and hands are in a position that supports your posture, does not harm it. And finally, bring your awareness up to your head. Checking to see that the head is resting balanced and comfortable on top of the upper body, chin parallel to the ground, not slouching or leaning. And when you're ready, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. And then let the breath go. From here on in, we do not want to manipulate or control the breath in any way. This body has been breathing from the moment you were born and will continue to do so until the second you die. It doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is to simply observe, abide, and investigate the breath. Watch as this body breathes in. Watch as this body breathes out. Remember to lay down your burdens. Put down your world for the time of this meditation. Let go and follow the breath. As you're following the breath, you will be distracted. Your mind will go to the past or the future, across the world or the galaxy, as far away as it can from the breath. Or a distraction from the outside will come like a sound. Whenever you become distracted away from your breath, first acknowledge that you become distracted. Practice letting go of the distraction, and then return to the breath. By letting go, this means that not getting angry and agitated and trying to push it away, or excited and getting involved in it. Just letting it be. It arose on its own, and if you leave it be and give it no energy, it will go away on its own. Acknowledge, let go, and return over and over again. So just like last week, we'll practice switching our object from unity to diversity. Instead of following the breath, bring your awareness wide to all of your mind and body. And from here on in, just observe and let the body be, let the mind be. Then something will present itself very strongly in your awareness. An itch or a pain or a thought or whatever it might be. Whatever becomes most prominent in your awareness, focus in on that. Make that your object of meditation. Observe it and investigate it like you would the breath. You may notice that things will arise, persist for a time, and then they'll come out of your field of awareness. And something else will become prominent in your field of awareness. just like the breath coming in and out. These two are impermanent, rising and falling. When something arises, like for example, an itch, focus very deeply on the sight of that itch, the sensations. What does it feel like in the body to have an itch? What is the state of your mind like when you have this activity occurring? This itch or whatever it is. What is the general tone of your mind? What are the thoughts that arise in relation to that tone of mind and that itch? And what are the impulses that arise? Strong desires to perform an action. Investigate the interplay of mind and body in relation to whatever experience, phenomena is arising prominently in your field of view. Try to see and observe as deeply as you can whatever it is that arises. Slowly start to open your eyes. Bring your awareness from the internal back to the external. The room around you, the computer, the live stream, and Dhamma friends in the chat. Corsair leaves us, saying that it was a very productive evening and looking forward to more Dhammapaloozas. He starts to come right about when it's about to end for half a year. Isn't that life, huh? That's the way it goes. All right. So if you have any questions or anything that you'd like to add. Oh, hey, Briar Rose. Good to see you. If you have any questions or anything you'd like to add in the last 10 minutes, you're welcome to do so. Ah, Bante. Good to see you, Bante. Or Tan Pamuto. All right. Let's do some. Adriana, you said that last week. That's really been very beneficial for you. So that's good. All right. Let's do, while I'll keep an eye on the chat, but until then, we can do some Samyutta Nikaya verses. 2.25 with Jantu. So I have heard at one time several mendicants were staying in the coastal lands in a wilderness hut on the slopes of the Himalayas. You heard that term, Himalaya? So for many people, this might be the first time they're hearing it said in such a way. Usually, Westerners are used to saying the Himalayas. But in Buddhist countries, they call it the Himalayas. The Himalayas. So here we have in the suttas, somebody hanging out in the Himalayas. They were restless. Could you imagine this? Several mendicants in such a beautiful place. Have you ever seen Bhante Rahula, his pictures in the Himalayas by Mount Everest? How amazingly beautiful. So they were in this beautiful place in the wilderness on the slopes of the Himalayas. Yet they were restless, insolent, fickle, scurrilous, loose-tongued, unmindful, lacking situational awareness and immersion, right? So physically secluded, not mentally secluded. With straying minds and undisciplined faculties. Then on the 15th day, Sabbath, the god Jantu went up to those mendicants and addressed them in verse. The mendicants used to live happily as disciples of Gautama. Desireless, they sought alms. Desireless, they used their lodgings. Knowing that the world was impermanent, they made an end of suffering. But now they've made themselves hard to look after. Like chiefs in a village. They eat, and then they lie down. Unconscious in the homes of others. Oh boy, these monks are not doing well. Having raised my joined palms to the Sangha, I speak here only about certain people. They're rejects with no protector, just like those who have passed away. I'm speaking about those who live negligently. To those who live diligently, I pay homage. So this is things. They're rejects with no protector. So this is this is Adriana. They're talking. I think he's talking about other monks, right? So in this area, there were these wonderful monks. Now there's these indigent monks. What's going on with these monks? Right? So when a protector here in terms of monasticism is your wow, I'm trying to think of the word, not diligence, being I'm going blank. Refraining, keeping your sensual, your senses refrained, restrained. So restraint of the sense, that's what I'm trying to, restraint of the senses is a protector, right? The monastic rules are a protector, right? Your own sila is a protector. So that's what this means, right? These monks are just totally, there's nothing that is kind of keeping them on the straight and narrow. No, they don't have any protectors. Right, so that's what this means. Tom Pamuto says, getting called out by a god. It was not a safe time to be slacking back then. No. All right. So let's do the next one, Rohitassa. At Savatthi, standing to one side, the god Rohitassa said to the Buddha, Sir, is it possible to know or see or reach? Ah, I thought this name sounded familiar. Yes. Is it possible to know or see or to reach the end of the world by traveling to a place where there's no being born, growing old, dying, passing away, or being reborn? Reverend, I say it is not possible to know or see or reach the end of the world by traveling to a place where there's no being born, growing old, dying, passing away, or being reborn. It's incredible, sir. It's amazing. How well said this was by Master Gotama. Once upon a time, I was a hermit called Rohitassa, son of Bhoja. So this is actually quite a famous sutta. Right, so the Buddha, so he asked the Buddha, "Can I travel somewhere? Can I go far into the world systems? All these kind of things. Can I travel and find a way to the end?" Buddha's like, "Nope." I was a Skywalker with psychic powers. Yes, he wasn't a Jedi. He was literally somebody who could fly through the sky. This is something that's common among like arahants and beings with psychic powers. Like you see pictures of them like in their like lotus stance and they're just flying through the sky. I was as fast as a light arrow, easily shot across the shadow of a... So he basically said he is as fast as the speed of light, right? Easily shot across the shadow of a palm tree by a well-trained expert archer with strong bow. My stride was such that it could span from the Eastern Ocean to the Western Ocean. So literally in one stride, he could go from the Eastern Ocean to the Western Ocean. So like Jambudipa in India, one stride on the east to the west, right? He was like the Flash, like that superhero. Anyway, this wish came to me. I will reach an end of the world by traveling. Having such speed and stride, I traveled for my whole lifetime of 100 years, pausing only to eat and drink, go to the toilet and sleep to dispel weariness, and I passed away along the way, never reaching the end of the world. It's incredible, sir. It's amazing. How well said this was by Master Gotama. Reverend, I say it's not possible to know or see or reach the end of the world by traveling to a place where there's no being born, growing old, dying, passing away, or being reborn. But Reverend, I also say there's no making an end of suffering without reaching the end of the world. Now here the Buddha is saying this. This is very important. Is the Buddha saying this? Maybe he is. Yeah, no, yeah, he is. He's saying, because he's saying friend. Okay. Even still, but the point is here, without reaching the end of the world. Let's see, does it say what he means by the world here? For it is in this fathom-long carcass with its perception in mind that I describe the world. Yes, yes. Its origin is cessation and the practice that leads to cessation. So the world, is this body and its six senses. Why is it the all? Why is it the world? Because we cannot know anything beyond it. It's everything. It's the world, right? So it's saying there's no making an end of suffering without reaching the end of the world, right? No more birth, no more body, no more senses, no more old age, sickness, and death. The end, right? So the end of the world can never be reached by traveling, but without reaching the end of the world, there's no release from suffering. So a clever person, understanding the world, has completed the spiritual journey and gone to the end of the world. A peaceful one, knowing the end of the world, does not hope for this world or the next. Tan Pamuto is saying that a Sri Lankan pundit did calculations on the arrow and it came close to the speed of light. All right, so that brings us to 9:56. So let's do our sharing of merits. Where is it? All right. Dukkha patta chani dukkha, bhaya patta chani bhaya, soka patta chani soka, hontu sabbe pipaniyo, etavata cha amehi, sampatang punya sampatang, sabbe deva anumodantu, sabba sampatti siddhya, akasata chapumata, deva naga mahidika, punyang tang anumoditva, charang rakantu sasadang. May the suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear-struck fearless be. May the grieving shed all grief, and may all beings find relief. May all beings share in this merit of ours for the acquisition of all kinds of happiness. May beings inhabiting space and earth, devas, yakas, and nagas of mighty power, share in this dispensation of ours. May they share in this merit of ours. May they long protect the Buddhist dispensation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, friends. So we come to the end of another Dhammapalooza. Only 2 or 3 more before I go to California. Let's see. What do we got here? 1, 2. Yeah, only 2 more. I highly doubt that I will be doing that next one because then it'll be time to go. So 2 more Dhammapaloozas left. Yep. And then about 4 or 5 month hiatus, somewhere's around there, while I'm away. So friends, yes, another Dhammapalooza in the books, friends. Until next time, Sukhi Hotu, may you be happy. Practice well and be well. We are doing still morning monastery experience every morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. So in about, 10 hours from now. So you can join us on this live stream channel again for morning monastery experience, Saturday through Tuesday, at least until the 1st, next 2 Dhammapaloozas. And you can check out stuff on the channel. Much appreciated. Thank you for giving likes and all that. That helps, the channel become more aware on the YouTube algorithm and all that jazz. So friends, for those of you who are not in our Discord Sangha, if you are interested in learning about the early texts and how to use the early texts as a framework for your practice, you can join us. You can send an email to Maggasekha @gmail.com, and myself, Adriana, Reed, one of us will get to you and send you an invite. And until then, friends, I hope to see you again next week. So may you have a spiritually successful and peaceful week. Practice well and be well.